The first PFL Tournament Championship event of 2025 takes place this upcoming weekend on Friday, August 1st, and we're going to see the welterweight finals and the featherweight finals, and we got to touch on both of those scraps right here. In the welterweight division, we will see Thad Jean taking on Logan Storley. For Thad Jean, he is quickly becoming one of the biggest names and one of the faces of the Professional Fighters League because at 27 years of age, he is already 10-0 as a professional, having finished 6 of those 10 victories with 5 knockouts and 1 submission. And what has his 2025 tournament looked like thus far en route to getting to the finals? Well, it started with a first round knockout back in April, and then he followed that up with a decision win over Jason Jackson, who was one of the former Bellator champions prior to the merger. And while odds-wise it wasn't one of the craziest underdog victories of the year, it was, in terms of a storyline perspective, a very big upset. And prior to this 2025 tournament, he had 4 other victories in the Professional Fighters League, with 2 of them by way of knockout, and he also holds victories in LFA and Cage Fury Fighting in 2021 and 2022 respectively. And he's doing a lot for his name value and his branding in terms of making the most of his post-fight interviews and press conferences and interviews in the lead-ups to fights with platforms such as MMA Junkie and the like. And I can't fault the man because there aren't a ton of huge names for the PFL right now besides Thad Jean, right, and a Dakota Ditcheva. And maybe after the crazy comeback a couple of weeks ago, Costello Van Steenis can throw his name into the mix as well. And of course there's Francis Ngannou, but let's be real, he's only had 1 fight so far in the PFL. So if Thad Jean can get another victory here against another longtime Bellator veteran in Logan Storley and become the 2025 tournament winner, he will absolutely be one of the faces of the PFL, a big opportunity for him here on Friday evening. And as for his opponent, Logan Storley, he was a 12-fight Bellator veteran before the acquisition by the PFL in 2023, putting together a record of 10-2 during his time in Bellator, with his only 2 losses coming to the very same man, and it was at that point in time the undefeated champion Yaroslav Amosov. Not to mention, Storley would become the Bellator interim welterweight champion after beating Michael Page in May of 2022 during Amosov's military service in the Ukraine. And since the PFL Bellator merger, he has been one of the more active Bellator turned PFL fighters. He would lose his PFL debut via knockout to Shamil Musayev last April, bounce back with a victory in June, and during this 2025 tournament has gone 2-0 with 2 decision wins over Joseph Luciano and Masuyaki Kikuri. He's 32 years old, right in his prime, with a record of 18 wins and 3 losses, having finished half of them by way of knockout. And I think regardless of who the winner is in this welterweight championship bout, they will be considered one of the best fighters in the entire organization for sure, and definitely in the discussion for top 15/top 10 best in the world, regardless of promotion for the welterweights. Which I realize is a stretch because the welterweight division for the UFC right now is absolutely absurd, but you get the point. It's a big-time opportunity this Friday. And in the featherweight division, we will see the 2023 PFL Championship winner Jesus Pinedo taking on Movlid Khaybulaev, who was the 2021 PFL Championship winner. Jesus Pinedo will always be remembered for that historic 2023 run en route to winning that championship because he started that season 0-1 with a loss to Gabriel Braga, and he was automatically behind the 8 ball. And in each preceding fight, he would continue to be the betting underdog and shut down those odds makers each and every time. First, he would shut down the hype train of Brendan Loughnane with a first-round knockout. Then he would finish the veteran Bubba Jenkins with a second-round knockout and avenge that opening loss of the season to Gabriel Braga in the championship, and he did that with a third-round knockout. And although we didn't see Pinedo fight at all in 2024, he has gone 2-0 in 2025 for this year's tournament with victories over Adam Boric, the Bellator veteran, and another victory over Gabriel Braga, his rivalry, to settle the trilogy 2-1 in his favor. And did you notice something there with all 5 of those victories? All 5 of them are by way of knockout. At just 29 years of age, he already has 32 professional bouts with a record of 25-6-1, having finished 20 of those 25 wins with 16 of the 20 by way of knockout, including the last 5 in a row. And now the young man from Peru is looking to add another championship belt around his waist for the PFL. And while it's not another $1 million check, I do believe it's at least a $500,000 check, which regardless helps the bank account out. but it's going to be a big-time uphill battle for Pinedo to win his second PFL tournament/championship because he is taking on the undefeated Movlid Khaybulaev, who at 34 years of age is 23-0 with one draw, and that draw was way back in July of 2019, and then he followed that up with a no contest to Daniel Pinedo and hasn't looked back since. And it's worth mentioning that he has notable victories over Herbert Burns, a UFC veteran, Brendan Loughnane, a PFL champion, and Chris Wade, a former PFL championship challenger. And in his first fight of this 2025 tournament, he got a decision win over Jeremy Kennedy, a Bellator veteran, and his second win was against Taekyung Kim, which was also a decision. And while it feels like it would be another Cinderella story for Jesus Pinedo, being that the resume of Khaybulaev is so impressive, Pinedo is actually surprisingly the betting favorite currently. When I'm recording this on Tuesday, July 29th, he is minus 175 with Movlid on the comeback at plus 145. So give me your predictions for the welterweight and featherweight PFL tournament championships down in the comments below. Will Thaddeus remain undefeated? Will Movlid Khaybulaev remain undefeated? Or will Logan Storley and Jesus Pinedo take away both of those perfect records? If you enjoyed this preview, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, because every single week I break down and preview the biggest and best fights from an X's and O's perspective, sure, but more importantly to me, a storyline perspective, and talking about what is at stake heading into each card. And in the aftermath every weekend, I give my recaps of the most meaningful results, and I also give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can also join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as like the Facebook page Verbal Sparring MMA, and you can follow on your favorite audio listening platforms such as Spotify and Apple, where every Monday and Friday podcast episodes release there. Have a great weekend, enjoy the fights, and I will see you all in the next video.